Pooja, you're welcome to go on camera now. I'm sorry to keep you guys.
No, don't worry at all. Hi,
Hello,
hello everyone.
you guys doing? Are we waiting for a
Hi.
couple of? Hi. Okay. So there are a couple of more people who are going to be joining in a few minutes. They've asked us to wait, but meanwhile, since the session is getting recorded, welcome to Coffee with MBA and Beyond, you guys. We do this week on week, and this is a clear like AMA, ask me anything. You can literally brain dump, ask any questions you've got to Ashmita and Pooja. We're going to be introducing them shortly. The idea is for you to be as interactive as possible. So feel free to go on camera, feel free to raise your hands and unmute yourself. The first 30 minutes of the session, we are going to be talking about how do we navigate through the introspection part of your MBA application journey. So there are going to be a few questions that have come through to us, and there are a lot of questions that candidates are asking while they're attempting to target round one. How do we navigate through the deep introspection with such short time in hand, and also like make sure that it's translating into really good essays. So we're going to be touching upon this sensitive topic with Ashmita's and Pooja's insight. Both will have valuable insights to share with you guys, I'm sure. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to be giving you guys the space to talk, ask as many questions as you want. So while we're talking, and if there are any questions popping up in your head, feel free to drop them in the chat. We can park them there and we can take up the questions as we go after the 30 minutes of discussing amongst ourselves. How should you navigate through introspection? Meanwhile, this is something that we do as a part of our vision to facilitate strong connections and conversations between alums, consultants, and students, and of course, aspiring applicants who are trying to get into some of the top business schools. So this is the weekly AMA thing. So even if you're targeting round 2, round 3, you will always receive invites from us. Today, we've got with us Ashmita and Pooja. Ashmita is a consultant with us, and Pooja is a successful candidate. I'm going to let them have the space to introduce themselves. Ashmita, over to you. Oh, by the way, I'm Paridhi, co-founder of MBA and Beyond. I forget to, of course, introduce myself sometimes. Ashmita, over to you. Why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Paridhi. Hello, everyone. I am, like Paridhi mentioned, Ashmita. I am a recent graduate from IE Business School, just completed my MBA just a couple of months back. And I have been working as a marketing professional. I have an experience of approximately almost 10 years. I graduated as a chartered accountant, worked as an investment banker for a while, and then while working as an investment banker, realized that that's not what I want to do. And I moved into marketing, and I have fallen in love with the field and stayed there ever since. Post my MBA, that is also what I'm continuing to pursue. And I have been, like Paridhi mentioned, working with MBA and Beyond for a little over a year now. So I would love to answer your questions, help you out in whatever way I can, and looking forward to this conversation.
Great. Thanks a lot, Ashmita. We're really looking for your, marketing and experience, how it translates into storytelling and introspection. Like everybody really talks about it. I hope the clients or the potential candidates want to be working with MBA and Beyond. This is a very close-knit session. They have a lot of questions about branding and introspection. So guys, Ashmita is your person tonight. If you have any questions around your personal brand, being pitched to a business school, sorry guys, that happens sometimes because in this closed session we do want to share access with everyone, since it's not like a large audience. Sometimes people do go on and they forget to unmute themselves while they're on meetings. Sorry about that again. Over to you, Pooja. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm really, first of all, very happy to be here. And my full name is Pooja Mittal. I'm from India, and I am a chemical engineer by background. I completed my engineering from IIT 8 years back. And then I joined Unilever. I've been working with Unilever in supply chain from last 8 years. I have experiences in several leadership roles, in factory roles, in managerial roles, head office roles, planning and innovation, etc. So briefly, that's my job description. I'll also give a little bit introduction from the perspective of MBA profile. So as if guys have any specific questions with a similar profile, you can ask me. So after 8 years of experience, I'm currently based in Netherlands. And after 8 years of experience, I decided to go for MBA. And that's when I applied for INSEAD. I have a 630 GMAT score, and that's when I found MBA and beyond. And they helped me relentlessly to get my dream school. And yeah, the same thing that Paridhi is speaking, how to navigate your story, build your brand. And that has been an amazing experience. I'm really, really happy to share my experience, answer any specific questions you have, help you to like get your dream school whichever way I can. So really looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks a lot, Pooja, and congratulations on your new journey that's going to start soon.
Yes.
Yeah, are you taking a break from work before you start the hustle, or you're still working?
Yes,
Okay.
I am going to leave the job by October end.
Oh, that's amazing. So you'll still have a couple of months too, of course. So I mean, of course, we'll discuss more on that. All right, guys. So the first touching question for all of you, especially the ones who are trying to target round 1, round 2, has started to think about the first step of their application. So question to you, Ashmita and Pooja, why is introspection considered such an important aspect of an MBA application journey? What are your thoughts on that? Why is it, like, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Anybody, Ashmita, Pooja, thoughts are welcome.
I think you can go first.
Sorry, Pooja, I did not get that.
I'm saying, Ashmita,
okay.
you can go first. Yes.
All right, thanks. So I think this is a topic that since the time I was applying for my MBA, I have heard it being discussed repeatedly. I mean, amongst consultants, amongst alum, people I knew who had pursued their MBA a while back, who was pursuing it at that point of time. And it was much later that I discovered why it was so crucial. One of the very obvious reasons that comes to mind is the fact that since it is an MBA, there is an overlap of goals. There are a few things that are common to a large group of people that we want to pursue after an MBA. Okay, so if I ask all of you, there might be a lot of you who are looking for a career change, or who are looking to get into consulting, or who are looking to climb the corporate ladder, or who are looking to start up their business. So there are these chunks. Now, when we apply to a B school with these chunks in mind, we also present our profiles accordingly, which means that the profiles that we are presenting all start to look the same. And that is such an incorrect view of who we are. It is not our view, our people, who we are as people is not what we put out on the paper to present ourselves as candidates who can achieve those goals. What introspection helps you do is understand which part of your application and which part of yourself should be brought out and is actually interesting. It stands out more than what it is on paper. If I may, I would like to give you an example of a current applicant I'm working with. See, he had, we use this tool Mirror. I don't know if you all know about it, where we take extensive content from the applicants. We work consistently with the applicants on gathering. So Paridhi is sharing this view. So everything is here, starting from the strengths, weaknesses, everything that you can think of. Okay. And this particular applicant, in his strengths and achievements, had filled out a lot of information on what he had done professionally. It was very interesting. It was not, nothing of it was harmful or bad in any way whatsoever. But there was one part in the achievement section, which was written right at the end, where he talked about starting his own company. See, he wants to be an entrepreneur going forward, and he talked about starting his own company and mentioned in like 2 lines. And when I spoke to him about it, asked him what this company was, he went ahead to tell me that this was a company which he had set up in his college days when he was pursuing his undergraduation. And he had set up a distribution system of sweets and desserts that were made by specifically mothers, stay-at-home mothers. Okay. And that was not what was the fantastic part. What was the really fantastic part was he had come from a family background where there were not too many people pursuing higher education. So what he had done was he ensured that every single one of his siblings and cousins who went on to college would be able to run that business. The only condition was they had to be in college. There was no way out of it. And the second condition was they would not be able to run the business after they left college. They would have to find their own way from that. Such a fantastic story and such a great aspect to bring out. And that is something that we have built on in his applications going forward. So these things only come to you when you sit down and you think about it in a structured manner and you actually pay attention to who you are instead of what paper says about you. I think that would be my insight on this.
Yeah, I think adding to that, Sushmita has almost covered everything, but adding to that, in my experience, what these schools are looking for is to know you as a professional as well as a person. So they want to see that wherever you are today, how you have come there, and now you're going to a B school, so where you want to go. So all that story only comes in your mind, and we get so busy with our professional lives that we do deliver things, we do have experiences, we do a lot of things, but we do not keep a track of it. So when I started my application and when I sat down and started thinking about it, I realized I've done so many things in my 8 years of experience, in my workspace, outside my workspace, with my friends, with my colleagues and everybody. But I never realized till the time I sat down and I started introspecting. So that's where introspection helps you to kind of bring back all those things together that you have done over so many years, which you need to translate into essays. Because if you look at the questions of any B school, you can actually see that they're trying to know your journey, and that only you can put together when you introspect. Because as I said, we get so busy with our daily lives that we do not keep a track of it. So that's where introspection comes into the picture, to bring all those memories, all those tasks that you have done. And that's, I consider introspection, for me, it was the soul of my application. I wouldn't have done introspection, how would I even know what brought me here, what all circumstances, what all events led me to the person that I am today, which the B school wants to know. So that's the importance of introspection in my thoughts.
Thanks a lot for wonderful insights, both Ashmita and Pooja. I think how I am collecting the gist of for what both of you are talking about. One, of course, is like how should you position yourself, the storytelling bit of it, and like what business schools want, how it aligns with it. And the second is business schools are interested in the personalities that you are. More than piece of paper that you bring it out there, like, okay, you've done things sequentially. While we understand the importance of a resume, but you have to understand that business schools, and imagine business schools as a person, like you coming together, like dating a person, marrying a person. They've got values, you've got values. So you can only bring out those values when you navigate within yourself to present those values out with the right evidences. And then you can, of course, later utilize them to position yourself as a global business leader. Understand that to bring out the right values which match with the values of the business schools, you have to introspect. I mean, I would just like throw out a random question to the audience. And while you guys can unmute yourself, we can take a minute just to huddle on this, or you can drop it on the chat if you're not comfortable unmuting yourself. What do you think is the most important value that you bring to the table? I was going to ask you 4, but I'm just going to limit it to 1 that you bring to the table for a business school that you think a business school is going to benefit from you. You can take a minute, take 30 seconds. We've got a small audience. We are happy to have you go on mic and share your thoughts. I'll drop the question again. What value do you think you're bringing to the table for a business school? We're not going to go into why, just one value if you guys can share. Is there someone who wants to, do you want to speak up? Okay, I'm gonna wait 30 seconds, guys. While I understand that you're shying away, maybe it's not coming through to you, but maybe something that you feel you bring to the table. Or we're basically doing a very boring session that is not inciting enough thoughts as yet, but it'll be interesting to see if you guys are coming up with something.
Yeah, guys, we
Okay.
would love to see the faces of future MBA candidates.
Oh, yes, of course. And then potentially you will be networking with these guys at some point in time, linking connections. Guys, can you tell us more about your school? Or maybe, okay, Kuhu's traveling. That's all right, Kuhu. That's completely okay. Okay, I think like Pooja, do you want to talk about what is that one impressive value that maybe you, after introspecting, was able to bring to light to the business school in your application, where you had multiple examples? So it's something that's coming through to you.
Yeah. So I think what I highlighted in my application, and I also realized it when I started introspecting, is that I'm really good at team working. So that was my, so, and I, that is also has like kind of come after a failure that I experienced in my life, which was also part of my application. So my biggest branding when we did all the working, and the branding that came out for me was that I'm a people person. I work really well with teams. And when I'll go to a B school, while working, while studying, while interacting with the people coming from different cultures, different backgrounds, different experiences, I felt that I could literally contribute while working in team, that I can build that feeling of togetherness and bring everybody together while working on the projects and while working on different topics. So that was the ability, that was my ability to contribute. When I, that's something that I realized when I started putting my application together. And I think that's, yeah, that's, I would really appreciate, honestly. Again, I never realized that this is my USP. I thought, okay, this is one of my quality, but when we wrote the whole application, it was coming again and again and again, and that's when I realized that this is actually my USP, that I am a people person. I can interact very well with the people from different cultures, and I can literally take a team together to drive towards a common goal and common agenda when I'm in a B school.
That's beautiful, Pooja. And I see, like, as you started sharing your thought and your example, like people started dropping in. What, because I that's what
Yeah,
happens, you know. Like sometimes we need a reference, like a framework, or somebody to just tell us something, and then it'll trigger, you know, some chemical reaction in our brain. Or like, oh,
exactly.
we bring that. Oh, maybe we bring this to the table. And I think that's where like the whole idea of mentorship and the framework and where mirror comes into picture. I feel you read a few samples, you get a little direction, and then you start thinking, brain dumping yourself, ideas start populating your head, which later start translating into what you call unique selling point right now, Pooja. Ashmita, do
Yeah.
you have any advice for our audience? How should they navigate through this introspection bit? If you've got like some steps in mind, that because right now a lot of candidates here, and I know Sandeep and Ritu potentially they have some values they want to talk about. We'll take up their questions in a bit, but they're rushing through their application for round one. And I've been talking to our current candidates and some candidates who are really pushing us to start working with them while they have a very short window. So we were trying to customize a package by talking to consultants, that is there something that we can help them with mirror, because we cannot help them, you know, with a comprehensive package right now with just 20 days in hand. We're trying to compromise on the time without letting go of, you know, the introspection part of it. Like Pooja said, it's the soul. So while the number of hours can be lesser with the consultant, but the introspection should be top notch. So do you have any advice for our candidates? How can they navigate through it?
I think a key part that, and this might not be something that everybody wants to hear, but I think it is extremely crucial. It is introspection is gathering the ingredients for whatever you're making. And if you're compromising on introspection, what happens later on is that we keep facing this, that we have to keep going back. One thing that I saw works really, really well is giving yourself bucketed hours. So I have had applicants who've struggled with writing down their content for days. And then when deadlines come really, really close, they just give themselves a space of 3 hours and dump everything. The second thing that I would very strongly encourage you to keep in mind is there's this very popular saying, I think Ernest Hemingway said it, I'm not too sure, is write drunk, edit sober. What we mean by that is when you are writing.
I validate your thought, and yes, it was the Hemingway.
It was Hemingway, right? Yeah.
I have done that.
That is actually, it works wonders. What it means is not literally get drunk, or maybe that is also okay. That is preparation for MBA in a way. But what it basically means is that you dump everything. Don't worry about your language. Don't worry how it is coming across. Don't worry whether it's a good story. Dump everything. Because a lot of times when you are dumping, you're getting rid of your thoughts. You're not letting it clutter everything else. Second, it's extremely easy to get into the flow when you start dumping. And that's when the good stories start coming out. The problem the reason we get stuck on introspection is we want to present it as an essay. You don't have to present it as an essay. You have to literally write as if you're writing a journal entry. Okay? It is only going to remain between us and you. Okay? There's no B school who's going to see it. Nobody's going to judge you on it. And trust me, you cannot possibly write worse stories than I have written. So just write whatever comes to mind, and that'll help you immensely. The third thing that I want to emphasize is actually re-emphasize what Paridhi was talking about, which is giving yourself that trail of thought. If you're getting stuck, you have resources available with you in the form of us. So whether it is, and I've seen this happen, whether it is just having a discussion, so you're soundboarding with one of us, or even reading the samples and listening to the initial voice notes that are there in the mirror tools. They help you immensely. They guide your thought as to where you would head. Okay, so use those and set deadlines for yourself. Don't keep doing it. Don't make it an endless process. Whatever you have to put forward, put it at that point of time and move on. So like Paridhi is sharing, you'll see this black box. There's a video where Shantanu talks in detail about what you have to do in the section. In other sections, there are voice notes on it. There is an entire structure that has been designed really, really well for you all to follow. So you'll be able to do that well. I would suggest to spend, rather than to jump directly to the essay and struggle in the essay, struggle here, so that in the essays, you can, so many times you can just copy from here and paste and just change a little bit. Because your story remains the same. Your story doesn't change, right, in different essays. So that is, it's a little difficult a process in the sense that we have to think differently. We are used to writing for others, we are not used to writing for ourselves. And in this, you write for yourself. So the beginning is slightly difficult, but once you get that flow going, it's absolutely simple to get it done there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
ahead,
I have
Pooja.
experienced the same thing, what Ashmita said, when I started working on my application. I remember after my first call with my consultant, I thought, oh, I have to, then my first version should be at least well defined. If the word limit is 300, it should be at least not more than 350 and etc. So honestly, I could write only 5 to 6 lines. And when I had my call, I was trying to make it grammatically correct. I was trying to do it right this way. But then we had a conversation, and I realized that the first draft has to be, it's like as raw as possible. It's like whatever come to your mind, like you can write it in spoken language. Do not worry about grammatically correct answers, etc. In fact, there was this one essay whose word limit was 300. And when I wrote it for the first time, because once I started writing, I was just writing in the flow, as Ashmita said. And my thoughts kept going, and I continued writing, and I wrote 1200s in the first draft. So that's totally fine, because in fact, has to be as raw as possible, because it also then adds to your essays the emotions, not just the mechanical part. And then your consultant can actually get that whole information and bring it out in the best possible way. Otherwise you will miss out all the emotion behind it in when you are trying to write it perfect, and your consultant doesn't know you, so then they will not get to know what the story, the message you're trying to give. So, and that did three things for me. It was like it reduced my anxiety, it gave me a starting point, it made it much easier for me to start because I was not worried about how it looks. I was just writing it as it was coming to my head, and no matter how wrong it is. In fact, Dr. Vanita has even corrected my spelling mistakes a lot of times, who was my consultant. But do not worry, like your first draft is just like you are getting up in the morning and looking into mirror, as raw as that. So just write it, sit down, write it as the way you want. It has to be that way, in my opinion. I think totally agree with Ashmita on that.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, both of you, for sharing that. So just to top up what Ashwita was saying, you're telling your story for the first time. I just say, and this is hard because here you are the protagonist. I mean, I've written a book which I published back in 2017. I was talking about people, but I still find it hard when I have to write, about myself. And as imagine like writing essays and essays and essays about yourself. It's not an easy thing. But yes, you are the protagonist here. So portray yourself as one with collinearity and the right evidences. So when I say collinearity, the idea is that all dots are connected. Make sure that you are not, whatever goal you're positioning yourself with for a business school, make sure all the evidences and stories that you're bringing to the table align with that. Because if there is a little bit of, misdirection here and there, and you have derailed, you might have derailed, it's fine. But pick the stories that showcase you have not. And that's what matters eventually, right? Like you make it to the business school, it's fine, you've done a lot of other things with the limited number of words that you have. What Pooja is also advising you on, just brain dump all that you have, because if you don't, and if you only limit yourself to the number of words, you're actually filtering them out in your head, where your consultant could have potentially picked a very unique and impressive selling point for you based on their experience, which you might not notice right now. And it could be as small a thing as, you do pottery for, acting like a self buster or for self love, but it might just connect to some story somewhere, get you into some school because it resonates with one of their values about, giving back yourself something with boundaries so that you have a good work life balance. Just an example out there. Now there's this question, it brings a story to my mind. I've been talking to this applicant a lot because even though after brainstorming, she's not able to feel satiated about this essay question, 25 random things which Fuqua asks. And these 25 random things are really not random. They're looking for, your personality in that question. And it happens with all the questions. Stanford asks it like, why do you want to, like, why are you passionate about Stanford? Why do you want to do it from there, and why? I mean, why MBA? And then why that school is basically why you have to answer, but with a purpose. Kellogg asks the same question differently, but the gist is that what is your purpose with all of this? Like an MBA, a particular school, you're putting in a lot of money. We understand that you want to become a management consultant. We want to understand that you want to be a product manager, but there has to be a purpose to it. And that's what business schools want to navigate through to you, which you can do with a tool, which we are talking about Mirror right now. And with the feedback of all our candidates, we are constantly evolving and developing it in a format that it should be sufficient for candidates to navigate their application themselves with just a few hours with their mentors if they don't start early or ahead of time, because there are a lot of candidates who don't. So get that framework, work with your preferable mentor, soundboard with them. One quick tip, I would like to share this with you because this is a sensitive session. Some of you are going to come on board after this session. We have to look at our consultants as our sounding board. With limited number of hours that you get with them, make sure that you are well prepared how you're going to utilize that 1 hour. So do all the research and homework that you potentially can before you go on that 1 hour call. So if let's say you sign up for a 3 hour package or a 5 hour package, you can really extract the best juice out of it if you do it with the right research. So that's my 2 cents. Just don't completely always, mentors are, these consultants are great guys, but trust me, the work is yours here. And Pooja didn't make it through because the consultant did the work for her. She just guided her. Pooja was the one who worked her ass, to get it to INSEAD, to get herself into that, get that admit letter, because she researched, talked to a lot of alums, talked to a lot of consultants, talked to a lot of mentors, soundboarded, get their inputs. And then finally, of course, the final consultant, she was like really bouncing off her ideas and was eventually was able to extract the best application out of it. Okay, I think we're ready to start taking questions. And I think Ritu, you were raising your hand. So we're going to take that one up after Kanika's question. So 30 minutes, guys, it's all yours. Any questions you've got, drop them here, raise your hands, feel free to unmute yourself. Kanika is asking to both of you, Ashmita and Pooja, how important is your undergrad GPA when targeting European business schools, given they prefer candidates with more experience than perhaps they give more weightage to work experience? So, thoughts?
So
Yeah.
I will just answer this question. Personally, my GPA, so I did, while I was doing CA, I did my undergraduation along with CA, which means that my undergraduation grades were terrible. I got 59%, I think, translates to a horrible GPA. In CA, while I had become a CA, which was enough for at that point of time, and CA is considered that kind of an exam where GPA is not valuable, my marks was literally 50%. Again, terrible GPA. Okay. But I had a very good explanation to that. And that is where your alternative essays, your optional essays come into play. Okay. Where you want to explain why you have a shortfall somewhere. Does the shortfall matter? Yes and no. It matters if you leave it as a close and as an open-ended situation. You have just mentioned a GPA, which is not great, and you have not explained it. And that explanation can be anything, as long as you're closing the loop. There have been people who have explained their less than ideal GPA with things like work that they had to do. They had to support their families while working. They have explained it as preparing for competitive exams while while pursuing their undergraduate studies, pursuing something entirely different. There have been people who have been training as professional dancers and professional singers. I had a classmate who explained her GPA. She barely passed, and she explained her GPA in a way where she mentioned that she was an opera singer, and she was traveling throughout her undergraduate. She was traveling around the world singing, around Europe, I think. And well, that's a great explanation. So your GPA is not who you are as a person, but it should not be left to the admission officer's imagination to figure out why your GPA was not good enough. I hope, Kanika, that answers your question.
I think it does, but yeah, Kanika, your thoughts would be very good.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Ashmita. It does help.
Great.
I
Why?
really want to add one thing to that, because Kanika has also mentioned the work experience. So I think GP Ashmita has explained really well, but talking about work experience, it's not so that the B schools would prefer more work experience over less, because right now I see in my class, I do have people who have just 3 years of work experience, but their profile and everything, other things are very good. We do have people, and I've been in touch with all the applicants, so I have seen even the people with the work ex of 6 years or 7 years have not got the call because of the profile. So it's not the number of years of the work ex that they value, it's the quality of the work ex that they value.
Absolutely. And for your GPA, I just say one thing: you cannot go back in time and change it. While there are some things that yes, you can do to make up for it, and you're not the first person who's applying with a low GPA. There are like a lot of candidates who made it through to a lot of schools, good schools, M7s, INSEAD, LBS, IE, EASA, all these good schools with a better GMAT score than an average. That helps for sure. If you're not able to, of course, get there, there are other means for it. You get some certifications, try to prove that you are academically strong, you have that aptitude that business schools are looking for. So there are means and ways to make up for it. Imagine Pooja made it to INSEAD with a 630. Pooja, do you want to talk about that hack? Because this is like definitely one of the biggest success stories out there. People are very interested in knowing, like, how did you make up for that low GMAT? What really clicked with INSEAD in your assumption and your consultant's assumption? So how did that happen?
I think, yeah, first of all, again, as Ashmita explained, do not leave it open-ended. So I used the question where they asked that, is there anything else you want to tell us about? That's the question I used to explain my low GMAT score. And I connected it really well with my overall personality. I said that GMAT score does not define me because I'm more than that. So why I had a low GMAT score was because of mainly verbal. So the concern with the B schools when you have a low GMAT score in verbal is that if you will be able to understand their classes, etc., in English, because all the classes are conducted in English. So I justified that concern that even if I have a low GMAT score, I am right now working in an international setup. I'm based in Amsterdam. So I interact, English is now my first language. I speak to people mostly in English. I'm from India. Here I speak Hindi. Now I have forgotten if I have spoken Hindi in the last 1 year when I'm there. So I justified that part that I'm in an international setup. My schooling has been in English and I'm connecting, interacting, socializing with everybody in English. So that's not going to be a problem. And I'm also working. So I justify that, okay, my verbal is low because of RC. And that's where my weakness lies. But then you also have to tell them, what are you doing about that weakness? When it comes to GPA, agree, you cannot change it, but then you know why it was low. You were doing something else that was your priority, as Ashmita mentioned. So that's really good. But can that impact B school? Just see that part. And if it can, then you tell them that, okay, what is your plan to ensure that it does not impact it when you are there at B school? Because they also want that nothing becomes a hindrance when you complete your course and you're looking for the jobs, etc. So that's very important to justify that, okay, whatever your negative, or I won't call it negative at all, whatever a little less than average there is, it's not going to impact your performances when you are at the B school. And what are you doing about it to improve? I said, okay, I have a weakness that I'm not very good at reading. That's why my RC score was low. But this year I have a target to read 15 books and I'm trying to work on it. So that's not going to be a problem when I go to B school. And I really think that what, as Parith, you're asking what might have clicked them, is that yes, I'm willing to improve. I'm working on it. I have a plan to improve before I go to the B school. And right now, outside GMAT, I'm already practicing that part. So that's really, really important to show whatever your low point is. Doesn't matter if you show them you have a justified reason behind it and you are willing to work on it, so as it does not impact you when you are at the B school. And I'm really, I can like literally go on about the 630 GMAT, but that's the most important part, that you do not leave it open-ended. You justify you're working on it. What is your plan? They just want to see that you know this is your low point. You recognize that part, you're aware of it, and you're working towards it. That's it, I think.
Thanks a lot, both of you. And I think since you mentioned Pooja international experience, there's a question that another Pooja has asked to you. How important is international experience, especially for a school like INSEAD? So maybe your thoughts, and then I'll help you build up, and then maybe Ashmita, if you got with all the clients that you've been working with, if you got any 2 cents on that. So Pooja, maybe why don't you start?
I think, of course, international experience is super important for INSEAD, because that's among one of their qualities that they ask out of the 4 if you go to their website. So I'm not going to talk about the rest 3, but international experience is one of their key factor that they want to see in your application. However, it's also true that not all the candidates they are coming, they have got a chance to work outside of their country. So in that case, it's, if you do not have that experience, you have not worked outside, you do not think that only that is something that's counted as international experience. You can always bring out your international exposure in terms of maybe in your current role or previous role, you have worked with global teams, you have worked with international clients, even when you are in your country. Maybe you've worked on a project that gave you some international exposure. You can also mention travel as well, because there is in fact one whole page in INSEAD application where they specifically ask you that which are the countries you have gone, for what purpose. I have written 5 countries just for traveling. So even if you have traveled, you can mention that in international experience. What they're trying to see, that you have got an exposure to a different culture, you have an understanding of the different culture, and you are open towards it. So even if you had a little experience while working in the global teams or with a client or something, international client, just mention it. Even if you had a colleague who came to your country but was in your team, so you can mention that also, that I had a colleague who was from this country, I understood the culture, and it was this, it gave me this insight or something like that. So any international interaction counts. Just what matters is how you represent that. So don't worry. I mean, I understand not everybody gets the chance to travel to internet to abroad, and you may not want to wait before for your application before you do that, of course. So any international experience count. Just ensure that you emphasize on that part in your application. Do not underestimate it. Even as I mentioned, all these examples also count. What matters is that you enhances that part in your application.
Absolutely. Ashmita, do you have any thing to add?
I think what Pooja mentioned is what I've been working with my applicants. I mean, I've seen just recently, I'm working with an applicant who, so day one said, I have zero international experience. I have done nothing. While the moment she had started working, she started working with vendors based out of China. And it just completely skipped her mind because she thought she had never worked outside of India. So I completely agree with Pooja on what she mentioned.
Yeah, but that's a very interesting fact that you're bringing to the table, Ashmita, as well, because it's a myth that we have to break. It does not mean you need to have stepped out of the country where you belong to present international experience always. While it is important that you showcase adaptability, because that's what they are looking for. And however, whether at work, outside of work, community service, NGO, whatever you've done, every evidence, every example counts. It does not mean that you only have to have work experience, like work experience internationally. So however you can accumulate evidence and examples, please do that. That will always add up to international exposure, because that's what they're looking for. Just to give you a little insight into how INSEAD works, INSEAD is going to put you, as soon as you get an admit, put you together with people with 5 different nationalities, and that's going to be your cohort that's going to sail through next 10 months. So every business project, business idea, whatever, like courses, the projects that you're working on day in and day out, you are actually working with 6 different nationalities. So they expect you to have an understanding of how people could think differently in different cultures, and acceptance of that. So that INSEAD, to be honest, was started after war, just for building bilateral business ties, and they still stick to that vision that we have an acceptance of a very diverse background of people because of their cultures and their mindsets. So if you can prove that somehow, I believe you're pretty good with INSEAD for international exposure. Okay, we've got Rohit's question. So if we get to work with Rohit, he's going to be our second candidate by that name from military background. So he's a veteran. As a military leader for last 10 years, the quality I bring on table would be the leadership trails, ability to lead in challenging circumstances, and taking the team forward to meet the desired goal. Okay, what's the question there? But that's the value that
That's
you
the
bring up.
answer to
Yeah.
value.
And sorry, that was a really, really good value, by the way, Rohit. And yes, that accounts for a lot of stuff. Sorry, my bad. Let's take up Ritu's question. Ritu is asking, how much does the college matter? Does an IIT, NIT low GPA better than a high GPA tier 3 college? Okay, these are some genuine concerns. Pooja, Ashmita, your thoughts.
If I may on this, Ritu, the importance we place to IIT is what we place to IIT. Not too many people outside are placing the same kind of importance. Not to say that it's in any way whatsoever not deserving of the accolades that it gets, but a lot of times we get stuck on what the brand brings to the table, versus what we bring to the table. Remember, the B school that you're going to is admitting you and not your school. From a very personal standpoint, when I had applied to my B school, I got in all schools that I had applied to. I did not have a single brand, not one. I did, like I mentioned, I did my graduation from Open University because I was doing CA. Barely anybody recognizes the school outside India. I had worked consistently with startups. I had started my own startup. I did not have any brand name anywhere, and I was not rejected for it. So it is not that your call, it's not what defines you. A good college adds to your profile, but a college that is not very well known does not take away anything from what you bring to the table. Does that,
Absolutely.
I don't know, Ritu, if it makes sense to you?
Yeah, she says
Yeah,
thank
that does. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
That's great. And Ritu, like I'd just like to add up to that. Like most candidates only touch upon, I know you're concerned about the GPA bit and there are people concerned about it. They just talk about like it takes, I think, less than 5% of the space on their application. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ashmita, like except for it's just less than that, because everything that you want to be talking about is after college. What did you do? How did you develop as a leader? Because you have to position yourself as a leader, and a college may have a role to play in that, but I don't think IIT is actually made to make you a leader. While business schools don't understand how can people jump into an MBA right after an undergrad. You need to get an understanding of something, be exposed to the world, fit yourself into different roles, test the waters, understand what you really like, where are you a good leader, what are your weaknesses, strengths, achievements, and then of course amplify that with an MBA so that you can globally position yourself. So college, schools, we've seen people where in India we, of course, and I resonate with Ashmita because neither do I come from that background. My co-founder did make it to IIT, but at a very lower rank. But he went to DCE instead, just because he wanted to go to a school which was giving him much more exposure, and Delhi was that place compared to a really remote IIT. So really makes I mean, schools, they don't know. DC, IIT, NIT, they don't know. And I'm just really going to say it out loud here. So, but yeah, I hope you find your space with something else and get over GPA. And I'm sure a consultant will help you there. Just have that first conversation. So,
I understand. Yeah.
Sorry,
Thank you.
if I may add just one other point here. I love coming back to this because this is my field, but this is branding. This is how you tell your story. Remember, everybody loves an underdog story. We all love it. Okay? So if you can show your growth from a 2 to a 15, it's going to be so much more valuable than somebody who's showing a growth of 13 to 15. So it's dependent a lot on how you package yourself and how you put in your application. So even if you have started from a school that is not well known and you have scored really low, but you've shown immense growth over the next 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, however much you have worked, it's going to count for so much more than simply a good GPA.
I understand. It's just the overrepresentation that gets you worried about this, like the GMAT,
It's
and
also,
it has to be. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
also us as Indians, no? It is
Yeah.
15 years of schooling and conditioning. Where will all of that go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
and
but
I
this
can add to that. It's like I come from IIT college, but I can surely say that just mentioning IIT on my profile wouldn't have worked. Of course, even if you're from IIT, you have to tell them who you are, what your growth has been. I've literally incorporated every single point of my growth, as Ashmita mentioned. Even if you're mentioning IIT, you cannot just say, okay, you started from IIT, so you have grown just say X. You even after that you have to say, okay, you have grown 10x or something. You have to show all your experiences, not just that you went to IIT. It's not just IIT plus GPA, it's IIT plus or college plus GPA. It's college plus GPA plus what you did or what you learned there.
Yeah, we're just like plus, 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 plus what you did and learned there. So, amplified
Thanks,
plus. But yeah, that brings like another, and there's been a question around this. Years of experience, and even last coffee session, somebody joined with I think 2.5 years of experience, thinking of getting into INSEAD with 3.5 years of experience. While of course all of this is possible, but my question, and this is just food for thought, guys. I mean, if you want to spend some time on this, I'd love to read your answers on this. I mean, we didn't plan it like this. Just think through, why do you want to go for an MBA? Like, think, why do you want to put in that kind of money? Sleep it over, think about it. I'd love to read your responses. We've got some 18 minus 3. I'd love to hear you. Why do you think you want to? Because sometimes you will realize maybe you are just doing it for the tag of it. Sometimes you'll realize maybe you're just doing it to switch a country, or you're just trying to pivot. While these are good answers for going for an MBA, but they may not be really sufficient. You can really get by doing all of this without an MBA as well. So just think through it. Why is that you wanting? Why I understand we all want to make more money, but consider the recession as well. Think, is there something else beyond that? Are there deeper layers to? It's a lot of money. Like, ask somebody to give you 100K, start a business. I'm sure you might have a business idea of maybe 10. Put that money into something, but ask yourself, why do you need it? I think, Ritu, you'll arrive at your answers of low GPA, low GMAT, school, and all of that when you find an answer to why do you necessarily want it, with the right supporting evidence. All of this will not matter anymore for any of us. Low GPA, low G, because imagine Pooja with a low, and we've seen people from IIT with a 770 not making it through to a top school as well, because they did not have one extracurriculars. They were very resume driven. Promotions, 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 fine, like really good. But what more? Where's the personality? A lot of people, like, also, they lag behind on that, and they can't make it through to a school. They are looking for a wholesome package for you, from you. So, okay, Pooja is asking, what are the other avenues after MBA other than consulting? Of course, I think Ashmita can talk a lot about it. Consulting seems to be the most popular choice. Yes, it is. But I wanted to understand the popularity of other fields and how important would an MBA be to build a career there. Just a bit of context. I am an HR professional and want to continue my post MBA career in HR. I love it. Ashmita, over to you. Like, if you want to talk about it, it's like insane. I want
Absolutely.
questions. I want more people like this to go for an MBA as well. Go for it.
Absolutely. I have a special place in my heart for everybody who's not going into consulting. The rest of you are nice too, but it is good to know that there are other people like me going in. Pooja, business schools have changed quite a lot since what we knew business schools to be in the 90s and early 2000s. You have to, I think I would encourage you to think over what Paridhi just mentioned. Think about why you want to do an MBA. I wanted to go for an MBA. I had a similar setup as yours. I was in marketing. I was very sure that I wanted to remain in marketing. There was no doubt about it. But one thing that I knew, that, having spent a lot of time working in different industries, the one thing that I was sure of is that for me to be successful in marketing and to actually lead companies and to be able to make the kind of mark that I want to make in this industry, if I don't understand other aspects of business and how businesses function from the P&L to the supply to vendors, everything, if I don't have a basic understanding of that, I'm not going to become a successful marketing professional, because marketing requires you to pitch your business. That's basically what you're doing. You're taking the business, whatever you're working for, whether it is your own company or somebody else, outside, and you need to understand business. And I knew for a fact that it is, unless I do an MBA, I'm not going to be able to get that, or it'll take me years. And I wanted that leg up. Okay. In your case, why is it that an MBA is important? What gap will it fill? Okay. As far as popularity of choice is concerned, is HR a popular choice? Absolutely. There are electives given only and only for organizational structures and how to do organization management. It is very much a popular choice. Like I mentioned, business schools are diverging into different directions. You will see biggest of the schools, best of the schools with 29%, 30%, 35% going into consulting, as opposed to 60, 70% going in earlier. So things are changing. People do not always just want to go into consulting. And to be very honest, even if you are one person in the entire batch who wants to go into HR, it's completely fine. You will get as much support as a consulting person will get, because the school has resources. All you need to do is you need to do your research well. You need to ensure that the schools you're applying to support your career goal. I think also this is where what Paridhi was talking about, your experience matters, because when you apply too young, you have not spent enough time in the workforce discovering what you like to do and how, what you want out of your life. That takes a little more time. So that is where, again, going back to what Paridhi said, I think that's a very important aspect. Before anything else, I think you need to sit down. All of us need to, kind of focus on why this is at all something that we want to do. Pooja, I don't know if I have answered your question.
I think you did that beautifully, Ashmita. And I know there are a bunch of questions pouring in now. We've got 3 minutes. We'll try to tackle as much as we can. But if you're not able to, guys, please copy paste this question. I'm going to send out an email. Just shoot an email to me. I'd be happy to either jump on a call or reply to you on the email thread itself. Just closing to what Ashmita, you were just talking about, that why MBA bit. While the answer may not always appear, purely logical sometimes, and it's good to be honest, because I was having a very honest conversation with someone who was hell-bent on going to INSEAD only for competition's sake, because majority of his friends made it to some of the top business schools. And that's fair, like you get to know yourself better. There's something that we all are chasing. Some of us are chasing money, capitalism. We live in the world. Some of them are chasing fame. Some of us are chasing happiness out of giving to someone, and we should be working with NGOs. But it's important to find out what are we chasing. And if MBA is fitting in there, please go ahead, put in that money. If it's not, even though we are in MBA admissions consulting business, I do play a devil's advocate, and I do advise people against it as well, because in the end it's about what is your purpose here. So Pooja, to your question, while you may not know right now, and you maybe are still exploring, there are opportunities in HR space massively. There's somebody who graduated from EASA, worked in leadership development program for Unilever, Pooja, in the London office, a very close friend of mine. And right now she switched from Unilever to INSEAD. She works with companies and professors to define leadership programs, which are like small, like short, 7-day, 10-day in the education. So she's gone big into education space, but for the CXOs, like what kind of program should we devise so that we can solve. And like one of the projects she's working on is for like a very big organization, the gender equity problem on the boardroom, in the boardroom. And it is a problem, and it's such an impressive problem to solve. So there is a lot of room if you're into HR and if you don't want to switch. I mean, you can go global solving problems for the CXOs, big organizations. Just painting a picture out there. Okay, we'll take one last question. We'll take Kanika's question again. Or we'll take Rohit's because we've answered Kanika's question. Rohit saying, I often get stuck with the question, what after MBA? As previously mentioned, I have had many leadership roles in the military and have overall work experience in project management, general administration, and related fields post MBA, or at least in the application. I would have to choose something that I can put forward as a post MBA plan of action, at least for the next 10 years. How do I go about it? How to introspect with this question in mind? Even though we've hit the clock, but I'd be happy to answer unless Ashmita, Pooja, you want to stay back, maybe share your thoughts with Rohit. Sure. Ashmita, would love to hear your inputs on that, and then maybe Pooja, you can also advise. Yeah.
Sure. Rohit, I think this is something that not particularly your experience, not a military background, but many people who go into MBA have, they are trying to figure out what they will do later on. Okay. What I would advise here is put yourself in that situation. Imagine you have graduated and now you have to choose one thing, and you have no, there's no cap, there is no ceiling. What would you choose? Go from there. Because if you ask me today, am I happy with my career choice? Definitely yes. Are there things that I wish I could have done? Absolutely. 100%. We all have that. We all have something we choose and we have opportunity cost. You have to understand that one thing that these schools are looking for is clarity of thought as well. Okay. So if you had to choose what is your topmost option, I would suggest you go with that thought in mind. Having said that, that is step number 2. Step number 1 is always going to be brain dump. Step number 1 is putting out all of your options on paper. So whether it is becoming a project manager, whether it is transitioning into product management, whether it is going into HR, whether it is going into marketing, whether it is to go into consulting. Consulting is a very popular choice for veterans, and you all are highly in demand in consulting companies as well. What do you want to do? Dump it all out. And step number 2, choose the absolutely optimum level and then go from there. With that in mind, once you have set the direction, then your consultant will be able to help you narrow down as to which aspect to highlight. Sometimes the optimum result is not really achievable after your MBA. It is maybe your 4th job after your MBA that was going to help you achieve that. So your consultant will bring you to the first one and help you see how you can put that as the short-term goal, and maybe what you have decided will be your long-term goal. But that is what discussing with your consultant is going to get. That I would say is a very practical way of going about how you want to present this. And in my experience, that has worked well.
Thanks a lot, Ashmita. Pooja, would you like to chime in? I think
Yeah.
like you. Go ahead.
I'll just quickly add one thing, because what I sense in the question that Rohit has asked is the pressure to know what you want to do after MBA for the next 10 years. So honestly, do not take that pressure. It took me 10 days to write my long-term goal because I was taking that pressure. The moment I took off that pressure, it took me just literally 1 day to come up with it. So as Ashmita mentioned, everybody's figuring out. It may happen what you're writing in your application. This is your long-term goal. You go to the B school and you find, no, this is not something I want to do. I want to do something else. And that's the truth. When I visited NCR, I met the current students, all of them are exploring. So do not take that pressure. As Ashmita said, that's actually a very fantastic strategy. And that's what I did long back. I thought of starting on my own supply chain consultancy firm when I entered into supply chain. And this was almost after 3 years of I started working, and I completely forgot that thought. But then when I started thinking about my long-term goal, That's what I said, I want to explore that part. And that's what I have written as my long-term goal. And I'm honestly not sure if that's something I'll stick to after MBA, because it gives you a lot of opportunities, and I might even do that. But it's not necessary that once you have written an application, you have to do it. As Ashmita said, they just want to see it. Right now, you have a clarity of thought. So please, first thing before you start doing the steps that Ashmita has said, take that pressure off of knowing what you want to do.
Yeah, I'll just close it at this thought. Don't be scared. Nobody's going to. So let's say if you said you wanted to become a product manager with one of the FANGs, and then you sat in a McKinsey interview or maybe joining Bain, nobody's going to come back to you and say, hey, dude, you'd actually written something else in your essay. Nobody. So don't worry about it. Have a good clarity of thought and present it on paper. That's our goal. I think it was a lovely session. You guys are a great audience. Thanks, Ashmita and Pooja, for such an insightful session. It was lovely hosting both of you. Thank you.
Thanks.